Hello and welcome to ANC Conversations. When talking about our new normal or how our post-COVID-19 world is shaping up, well, one can't help but delve into the subject of sustainability. Here in the Philippines, skyrocketing electricity costs are sparking conversations on renewable energy, and glimpses of clearer skies are giving us a peek at what greener living may look like. But how exactly does one go about it? Well, today we're talking to a group of people who may have the answers that we're looking for. I'm Paolo Obrera. Join me for a little bit of conversation. In the months since most of humankind was forced to retreat into our homes, well, we've seen improvements in air quality. Animals are roaming once busy streets and other heartwarming images. Now, calls for a more sustainable way of living is becoming even more pronounced and is actually being received with more curiosity than outright rejection. So, what exactly does it take to be green? Our first guest is Matthias Gerber, or Mr. GREENMAN. He's been voted the greenest person on the planet. All right, Matthias, thanks for spending some time with us. 2020 has, kicked off to be a very challenging year, and here we are 5 months down the road, and now we're dealing with a pandemic. What state of affairs is the environment in now?
I think there's two different sides of the picture here.
Mm-hmm.
We've obviously all realized some of the heavy air pollution that we are used to in Metro Manila or even outside. I'm here in Laguna, San Pablo City. We are used to as well seeing a lot of vehicles driving down the road with heavy black plumes coming out. And we can even see it after a week. If we wash the balcony, the tiles there's a small black coating of carbon particles there. That has massively improved. We have realized that there's a direct connection between human activity, here in particularly urban transport, and the levels of air pollution that we are facing that might impede our view, and even more critical, which we often don't see, negatively impact our human health, so to say.
Right.
So that one has been the most detectable change, I think, for most people. Then when we look at some waterways, some rivers, lakes, we have seen a massive improvement of the water quality in them. We have seen in some places wildlife biodiversity coming back in areas where they haven't been seen before. But then on the other hand, we still have most of the polluting aspects of industry operating. I mean, coal-fired power plants are still running. Very few have been switched off. Overall pollution levels are still reasonably high. If we look at the statistics, there are still a lot of factories going on. Most of the polluting vehicles, the big lorries, are still on the road. So it's been a kind of halfway to cleaning up the air. The concentration and focus of enforcement has been on cities and where people really are, whereas the Amazon rainforest, some of the rainforests here in Southeast Asia, the fact that nobody has been focusing so much on rural enforcement has led to potentially even increased deforestation at this point in time. Nobody is worried about us at the moment because they have too much to worry about in terms of the health crisis.
Dealing with the pandemic also brings about some new issues. What are some of the areas where we need to sort of focus our attention, which are new behaviors because of the pandemic? I know we're using a lot more plastic now because everything needs to be disposable. Everything needs to be hygienic.
We definitely have to keep an eye on that, on how we can avoid that gigantic increase. When we look at personal behavior, we have stayed away from food takeouts. In terms of organizations and generally society, we've definitely seen a massive increase in single-use items, disposable items. Even in German newspaper that I read on a daily basis, that was seen as one of the negative impacts. There will be a lot of chemicals used for disinfection, particularly now in offices. There are new technologies already emerging. I have seen two technologies that are even being offered in the Philippines. One is bipolar ionization that can actually eliminate virus coating with nano titanium dioxide that is continuous disinfection where you don't need that much of chemicals. I think we need to look at those passive continuous disinfection methods that are available already, but very, very few people know about these.
And as you mentioned earlier, here in the Philippines, a vast majority of our power, which we, a fact is, which we need and rely on, unfortunately, is still produced by, not the cleanest methods out there. We're not relying heavily on renewables. And most of our energy is still coming from coal-fired power plants. How do we then marry the need to rely on, energy and power by, staying home more, working from home more, relying on electricity and the internet and technology, so on and so forth, but at the same time balancing that with our need to protect the environment?
Yeah, I think this is a very challenging part. Due to the high level of reliable 24-hour geothermal availability, Philippines has more renewables and has a lower carbon footprint per kilowatt hour if you average it out over the country. This is because of the presence of geothermal, which is good news. But then coming back to that specific question about our homes, our electricity bill has gone up here as well because we're all at home. The TV is being used more. We have the lights more on because everybody is in the house. We are using aircon in the bedroom because we have two young kids, especially my baby boy is very sensitive towards rashes if we don't use the aircon. But we need to go a step back. How are we building our homes? Do we have insulation? How can we minimize the need for aircon? And that's where we come back to the good old Bahay Kubo. And we have the natural cooling roof. So we need to go back a step and learn from some of the old ways of how we can do things and adopt them to the modern technology. If we look for buying new homes and renting new places, let's do a check at 6 o'clock in the afternoon with all aircon switched off. Is this place naturally cool or not? If you own a house, you can apply some coating or even passive shading. The good old tree shaded the Bahay Kubo. The Bahay Kubo was much cooler. So we need to think back, and if we own a house, we can refurbish it, especially the roof and the wall that is facing the afternoon sun. If you insulate your roof and have the wall covered with afternoon sun, but that you can make with plants. You can put a frame around it, have those creeper plants, and suddenly you have a shaded wall. So there are ways of doing that. The more we apply this, the less we will need to rely on our aircon, the more we can tackle this threat of increasing electricity bills at home that Meralco will be sending to us now, which will have a lot of people shocked, particularly in times where they might not even have an income to pay those bills. So that is really the challenge. So we need a medium to long-term strategy to improve our homes and then as well to learn simple energy saving practices. I have to remind people in the house as well occasionally, let's switch off the lights if we don't need them, and look at, we have some small solar gadgets that we put out during the day and then we use them in the evening at night to kind of balance a little bit the power consumption.
Right. The problems that existed in some of our natural areas which were threatened before the pandemic are probably now more open to, the unfortunate forces of people who would take advantage of the situation of not a lot of attention being put on those areas. What do you think the biggest problems are while we're focused on our current situation here in the cities and in our homes?
We definitely know from those international reports and satellite data that the deforestation in those countries with big forests is currently rampant. And whether that is the same in the Philippines is maybe more difficult to judge. I mean, we haven't got that many forests left anyway. And I think we need to realize that the relationship we have with biodiversity or the lack of relationship might have been one of the root causes of the virus spreading from animals to humans. This is a very important issue that we need to look at. For the Philippines, the remaining biodiversity that we have, we need to put more effort into preserving it and restoring it. And there are some great examples. I mean, I know here just around the corner in where I live in Alaminos, there is a forest that is being restored with the help of some big corporate listed companies. Several of the large Filipino companies and banks have as well done their own tree planting and restoration projects. We need to see more of that. And we need to, once we are clear again in terms of no lockdowns anymore, we need to find joy again in connecting back with nature in a healthy way. We need to bring the green back into our homes with a little bit of creativity. And the Filipinos are incredibly creative, incredibly skillful. And with a little bit of inspiration, I think we can make that connection that some of the waste can be turned into value, and the land, the biodiversity can work for us in harmony with nature. And if we can ramp up that restoration of biodiversity with good biodiverse crops and trees as well, like fruit trees, where we can even benefit from it, then it becomes suddenly an experience for the family. And then shifting away from consumption society, where we have the gadgets and the things as the perceived happiness of people, to experiences. And I hope that all of our listeners notch that upper level in their home. Sometimes the simple togetherness and experience of the family can be much more valuable than an expensive 5-star trip with a flight to somewhere overseas that made a big hole into your pocket. But simple things can be beautiful and zero carbon.
Fantastic. Very well said. Excellent advice there from Matthias Gerber, also known as Mr. Greenman himself. You literally wrote the book on green living. It's something that I'm looking forward to picking up myself. Matthias, I want to say thank you for spending some time with us and really sort of setting the stage for our further discussions that we're going to have throughout this episode.
Sure, my pleasure.
All right. ANC Conversations. We'll be back with more.